Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And we are getting into the part two of how to navigate dating apps. I already did one video, and that video was really pertaining to how you kind of get into the speaking points in terms of hitting people up. And I really didn't go too heavy into it, but I just really kind of went simple. But it's really all you kind of really need to know in regard to that, because the truth is, it's not very complicated. You do basic things to get to get responses. You have to understand you're not going to get responses from everyone you want to get responses from, nor you have to understand that on dating apps, you're not trying to get the hot girl. That's not what you're trying to do on a dating app. It doesn't work like that. If there's someone who, on a scale of 1 to 10, if there's a girl who, and five is average, I mean the average good looking girl you see, and I say it like that because women are supposed to look attractive. Just because you're attracted to someone doesn't mean that they're super hot. It still means they could just be average. The average attractive girl, which is average, um, if you happen, it was a five. If you happen to see somebody who's like a 7 or 8, which is like realistically almost unheard of, someone like that wouldn't even be walking in the street. Um, don't just think you're gonna message them and it's gonna all come to play. It's not. So that's not what you're on here for. You're on a dating app to just get the response of a decent person, and that's it. If you're on there thinking you're gonna find some model, you're in the wrong place. Unless it's in a transactional exchange. In that case, you're pretty much looking to spend money in some fashion or another, which is no different than just going to buy a hooker. It's just less kind of out there because, oh, you took the person to dinner, you did this and that. But at the end of the day, you take them to dinner, take them to here, you take them to there, you take them shopping, whatever the case is. You might do you spend somewhere between $100 to $300 on someone you just barely met, and that's the same as buying a hooker. So I'm not going to get into all that. We're now getting into the aspect of you get a response. How do you respond? Like at once you match with somebody, and what happens? So first, we're gonna go with stating um, two things: the type of person, in terms of the level that we mentioned in the previous video. Like I said, um, you wanted to avoid a certain type, anything that's transactional. So the ones I said you're gonna send a message to are, if they are above average in attraction, but they happen to have had content on their page, like hobbies and this and that, and you I'm learning the words here. You shot your shot. You shot your shot, and say if it was successful. So we're looking at that person who is above average, but because they actually have content to them, and you played off that content, how would you respond to that? And then also the average person, um, how you would respond to that, and then the below average person and how you respond to that. So regardless, on all the scenarios, because I told you in the previous video, you're pretty much going off of content that they have, or you mentioned something in the background of the photo, not them looking pretty, uh, but some kind of content in their thing. Some you have context that you're talking about. We're gonna go off of that, off the idea that that's why they responded to you. So if the person is above average, um, the person is above average. To be honest with you, don't put a lot of stock into it. And this is an advantage by treating it that way, because they're not used to people who will match them at their own game of not caring that much. I'm not saying that all attractive people are mean. If they have content to them, then it doesn't mean that they'll be mean. Maybe they're nice, but you could be nice and just you're working against they you are working against the odds with them because they're attractive and they have content. You, if you're an average guy, you have content, but to them, you're not that attractive, and they can have someone more attractive than you. So the only way you could really play that is match that same energy as if you are equally attractive. So, one, if an attractive person hits you up and you look at the time that that they matched with you from when you sent out your message or whatever the case is. If you sent it out sometime yesterday, and they just got back to it, keep in mind, since women get a lot more matches and messages and all this other stuff, sometimes it takes them a while to get back to it. But generally speaking, if it took them, say, like a day to get back to you, you could respond pretty right away with them, because once they match with you, now they're going to get your message instantly. If it took them like over 10 days to match with you and they did, you don't respond. If they said something to you in a message, then here's how you respond. And if they just matched with you but didn't actually give you a verbal response, in terms of verbal meaning written response, they didn't give you a verbal response, then you're going to handle it differently as well. If they didn't give you a verbal response, you could respond back with just simply "hey," or that's it, like something nonchalant like that, like "hi," or whatever the case is, and don't give any more context. It's just acknowledging to them that you acknowledge that they matched. That's it. Now, if they did, and this is if they haven't responded in 10 days, like from the time that you sent your message out. If it's been 10 days, but they sent a detailed message. Oh, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah. I see this about your page, or the comment that you said to them. Oh, you like pets? Because you saw they had maybe a dog or something in their page. And they go, yeah, I love pets. I got 3 dogs and I got 1 cat, whatever the case is. Cool. They gave you a detailed message. That is awesome. But because it took them 10 days to respond to you, and yeah, maybe they had a lot of other people hitting it up, it doesn't matter. This is an above average person in terms of attraction. You are going to wait at least about 3 days, 2 to 3 days before you hit them back. You're not going to wait as long as they took for you, but you're going to take maybe about 2 days to hit them back. And then when you respond back, it's like, hey, blah blah, yeah, whatever. So it lets them know, okay, he didn't get back to me right away. Because if they send their message after not hitting you up for 10 days and you get right back to them, it shows that you are all over it. It shows that your level of your social market value to them, the perceived value that you're showing them, is you are hanging on the whim waiting for them. And you don't want to do that. So give it like 2 days to respond to them if they're above average. And like I said, if they have context in what they wrote to you, is different if they have no context. If they just match with you in some capacity and don't really respond, you just throw a hey and that's it, or a hi. If they did give you some context, then give it like maybe 2 days and then you get back to them and give a detailed like response back, comment on what they said, and then also give another, like in one message. Don't do a bunch of multiple messages, do like 2 messages. One that comments on what they said. Yeah, they mentioned about having a pet. Like, yeah, I seen that. Blah blah. Haha. Yeah, I had pets in the past too. Whatever the case, something to that effect. And then now you start a new subject. Oh, how's everything? How's life treating you? What's new with you? Blah blah. Acts like all 3 of those things in one shot. Why? Because now when they respond, they got to come with a lot of stuff. They can't come with a one word answer. If they come with a one word answer, then you already know what it is. At that point, there's really no point to give too much weight back to it. But if they come with a detailed response after you ask like 3 questions in one message, then now even if you now gauge again, how long did it take them to respond? If it took them maybe 3 hours to respond, cool. You can respond back relatively right away. I'd say give them like 5 minutes after you got the message to respond back. Hey, blah blah, this and that. Maybe even throw in, yeah, I'm a little busy. I'm working, like, not that you're busy, but you might say something to the effect of, "Oh, I'm at work right now, but hey, blah blah, this and that." And you say, what you're doing, how your day's going along, but then you respond back, because that way it gives them the context that if you now are going to do the whole "I can't respond" as fast, they have at least the sense of, okay, like he's working. Now they're never going to give you that same courtesy, but it also gives you that sense. It gives them the sense that you're a little busy. That's the general rule of thumb for someone who's above average with you. Uh, and I'm going to break down each of these: above average, average, and below average, for that context, and then I'm going to go into it in terms of once you've actually been engaging back and forth for a while, and or a couple of back and forths, even whether it's that same day or another day, and then how do you go about trying to actually meet up with the person, because that's really the goal. So that's the general for the above average. For the average, um, see how long it takes for them to respond as well. But if it takes them a longer time to respond, um, you know, you can throw out the idea of, oh, I see you don't really use the app like that. If it takes like a long time for them to get back to you, say if it's over 10 days, you'd be like, oh, I'm guessing you don't really use the app like that. It's a way of just kind of like saying like, you're not trying to seem overly like thirsty, but at the same time too, it's like, okay, like you're trying to get a feel of things. The reason why I say that as opposed to the above average person, because the above average person just has a bunch of people hitting them up. The average person, you want to know right away with an average person and a below average person, but I'll get to that in a moment. You want to know right away um where they stand, because you want to kind of know like that your level as an average guy, you shouldn't be waiting. You shouldn't be feeling like second class to them. So it's like you can do that if you want. You don't have to do that. But once again, similar to I said with the above average person, see how long it took them to respond. Give yourself a little bit of time to respond back as well. Um, with the average person, you're still going to do the same thing in terms of if they give you a one word answer, you're gonna, if they just get back to you that first message and they're like, hey, you can go into at a timely fashion to respond, like I already mentioned, with a detailed message. Hey, how's everything? How's life treating you? What's new with you? Whenever you respond, do things like all three of those. The reason why I say that is because it gives a dynamic of having them answer the question with more than just, I'm fine. It's like there's a little bit more to address. Um, You don't want to just give a one word answer that they could just say, I'm good, I'm fine. Now, some people will take and elaborate on it if they're interested. Some people won't. But obviously, if they're responding off of something that you commented on their page, then in that case, there's going to be more to kind of go back and forth with anyway. And you dive more into that. But the critical thing is, like I said, once again, looking at how long it takes for them to respond. And someone who is average versus above average should be responding in a shorter amount of time. And after you send your message back to them, they should be responding also in a shorter amount of time. If it takes them equally as long as the above average person for the average person, then at that point, it's not worth it. Because at that point, you're the reason why we target people and whatever target people. Okay, if you don't like the word, I'm sorry. The reason why we target people who are less attractive versus more attractive is because we want the responses to be favorable. If they aren't favorable and we're getting the same kind of dynamics and responses as the person who is better looking, then for that we might as well just waste our time with the person who's better looking. And if we're going to get rejected, we might as well get rejected by the person who's better looking. So you hold them to a higher standard with how they behave. You're not there for them to just get your attention. So you see how long it takes them to respond. If it takes them, you know, a good amount of time to respond, um, right away just starts kind of like, we'll address that in a moment, and depending on how far the conversation went. If it's just the first, like, they send a message, and which is like, we'll say a day later after you've already said hi to each other, and then now like their next message, their third message maybe comes a day later, and then you send a message, and you don't send multiple messages after that. You just send one, even if it's a long one, a detailed one, it's just one. And then it takes them another day to respond back again. After that, you realize, okay, this is not going anywhere. Right away, just unmatch them. Because at that point, they're playing games. They're not interested. And the more you keep talking to them, the more it's just going to kind of stretch things out. But now going to the below average one. The below average one, once again, maybe they don't have their notifications on, or maybe they just didn't get, for whatever reason. You could address that if you want, but generally speaking, once the person matches with you, and with the below average one, I will say this: don't be too upset or bothered that maybe it took them a while to respond, because generally speaking, the below average, they're not responding because they think they're better than you 9 times out of 10. Most of the time, it's just whether they don't check their app, maybe notifications doesn't go through, they don't have no notifications on because they don't want to be bombarded by a lot of notifications. 'Cause keep in mind, women get hit up by a lot by guys or whatever the reason is. But just understand that don't necessarily throw that one out of the picture as fast as you would with the others, especially for the average, because this is the balance where the one who is really attractive, their excuse is that they're getting hit up a whole bunch because they're attractive. You get that, even though you're not going to get played, but you're also going to understand that there's a little bit of weight in that because you're trying to catch the bigger fish. The average fish, there's no excuse. You're not going to be like, at their beck and call because it's not worth it. Their average, your average is what it is. One below average, you don't want a mistake to be the reason why you end up running off because you thought that they were ignoring you when in fact once you get that kind of you get them on the hook and you kind of wheel them in, they're super excited. So give time to actually know with the below average that it wasn't a mistake, that maybe they didn't get their notification or whatever the case is. See how the dialogue actually goes once they do match with you. So as I said, don't hold too much weight on the below average, someone that you're a little less attracted to, uh, in regards to the fact that maybe it took them 10 days to get back to you, if that's the case. But how do they respond to you when they do get back to you? Now, the below average should be giving you a lot more detail back in return. And most of the time, that's the case. Because if they're more attracted to you than you are to them, that little thing you would have piggybacked off of, whether it's something in their background, their picture, maybe it's a comment that they said on their thing about a hobby that they're into, and you said something very detailed about that, they will respond back with a full, like, 3 sentences in one text message, or maybe they're going to send multiple text messages back to back of like, oh, hey, I see you're into that. Cool, blah, blah. Yeah, I like this. And because I blah, blah, blah. And they'll ramble a whole bunch of stuff with a bunch of different back to back messages. Um, and that will show their level of interest. And generally speaking, with that, like I said, so you're not looking at the same negatives. You just, with the below average, you just want to simply see when they do respond, how into it are they, at least initially. Now, going back up to the above average, and then we're going to make our way back down again, that you've now been talking for, say, mm, we'll say like 3 days, 3 to 5 days of you message them, and either it's a heavy flow of texting, and sometimes you guys may not, because people don't really do this nowadays anymore. Even just friends, don't really do this anymore. But like, if it's nighttime, they aren't going to say, "Oh, I'm going to sleep now. Good night." They just stop texting you, and then you wake up in the morning, you get a text. So don't hold that against anyone necessarily, especially if the flow is good. If the above average person, the flow is going good, then that's a positive thing. And within the context of, maybe you have spurts, so there might be in the morning you're going, back to back a lot, or maybe you didn't go back to back in the morning, but in the afternoon you did. At one point of the day, whether it's the morning, the midday, or the night, that you had a, a constant exchange, then that is a positive thing. um where they're talking to you as equally as much as you're talking to them. And even if, like I said, there's a point where they cut it off, the point that the fact that you had that back and forth exchange holds a lot of weight, at least for the setup of what's coming. Now, if you didn't have that, if throughout the entire day you already matched with them, they already said hello from you first hitting them up, you threw out a very detailed or semi-detailed return message. Hey, how you doing? How's life treating you? What's new with you? Blah blah blah. And they come back with everything's good, maybe 4 hours later, and after that, they don't give you no extra stuff with it. Honestly, if the whole day goes by and that's the dynamic of the conversation, don't even bother. They already told you, I'm not interested. That's what it is. Don't think there's nothing else in between that. The moment they already matched with you and acknowledged that you guys are matched, if it took them the entire day to send probably 2 messages, they're not interested. Don't even talk to them anymore. Just leave it alone. It doesn't even matter. Uh, now, but say if the conversation is flowing at either the morning, the midday, or the nighttime. If it happens all three, then even better. But sometimes people just aren't available because they're working, whatever the case is. If the flow is good, you have that at least for 3 days in a row. You're asking about all these things about them. So you're really kind of going back and forth. You're learning about their hobbies, their interests. You're laughing, you're joking in the text messages. Um, Ask for their number. Hey, listen, can I give you a call? Ask for their number. If they say that they're not ready, but you guys been going back and forth all that time with text messages like crazy, um, you can go, okay, you can text back and forth with them maybe another 2 days. If you say, hey, listen, like, we've been texting back and forth additional 2 days, whatever the case is, you don't have to say it specifically like that. You can just say, hey, we've been going back and forth for a little bit longer. um, can I now have your phone number? If they say they're not ready, that means they're making you a pen pal. They're not going to do that to the guy they're really attracted to. At that point, if there's the above average person, you go, okay, that's cool. And then you make it clear. You simply say, because you don't want to just vanish either. You don't want to ghost people. I'm going to tell you why you don't want to ghost them as a man. If they're not interested and you just stop talking, they're not going to notice. It doesn't mean anything to them. If they think they're above you, and I'm talking about the above average one. If they think they're above you, and then you specifically acknowledge to them, okay, you don't want to exchange numbers. You don't say it like that, but you just, okay, cool, I understand. I think you and I are looking for two different things. I wish you the best. Don't be mean about it. Just be positive. I wish you the best. I hope you find what you're looking for. We're not looking for the same thing. So you have a good one and take care. And then you just stop talking to them, and that's it. You give it half of a day to maybe a day for that to be there. If they don't respond to that, you just unmatch. Um, if they do respond to that, sometimes they're going to respond. If since they weren't interested in the first place, they're just going to say it now clear instead of like dragging you along and just say, okay, no problem. You have a good one too. That means they weren't interested, but they acknowledge what you said. Um, if they don't respond within about a day, unmatch them. But the point of you saying that to them is letting them know that you're the one who drew the line, that it wasn't where you wanted to be. And it may not seem like it's a big deal, but what it's doing is it's establishing to them, um, it's boosting your confidence and self value for yourself. And it's establishing to them that you know when to draw the line and you're not just some person who's going to chase them. It doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily chase you back, but it just at least lets them know that you're not one of those people that they were just going to have as a pen pal when they're bored and they're like out with their friends and their female friends and they want someone to talk to because their female friends have boyfriends and now they want to hit you up or some kind of dynamic like that. So that's one thing to know. Um, if they do give you their phone number, then you try to have a time where you can call them right away. The purpose of getting the phone number is to call them and speak on the phone. If you're not good with that, tough. You got to make it happen because if you can't talk on the phone, you're not going to be able to talk in person. So learn to laugh. Talk to them like you would when you're homeboys. That's really just the secret of it. Afterwards, you establish some time. Say if they gave you, it took them a week to give you the phone number, sometime next week or in the next 7 days, you're going to say, hey, let's go hang out someplace or sometime. If they are not okay with that, you're going to set a date. If they're not okay with you setting the date and they just go, oh, I'm busy, or I don't know when, everyone has free time. So that's a red flag if they can't give you a date. If they say, if you suggest a day and they say they can't do that day, you can suggest another day. But I would tell you right then and there, find out when. If they say, oh, I don't know, I got to see my schedule, I'm not sure when I'm going to be free. Okay, no problem. After that, once you're done talking with them, you don't hit them up anymore. Don't hit them up through text message. Don't say anything for at least about 2 days. See if they get back to you. If they don't get back to you, then you pretty much just know this person, I'm not even on their mind when I'm not around. At that point, you can once again, same thing you did before you got the phone number. Hey, listen, like I haven't heard from you in a while. I don't think that, we're kind of on the same page. I hope you find, I wish the best luck you find in, what you're looking for. And that's it. You bail out. Why? Once again, it establishes boundary lines. It kind of puts them in their place to know that you're not going to be that person and you're not going to just be randomly like popping up to kind of hit them up. If they respond back to you and go, no, I understand, and they aren't trying to fight for you, that means they weren't interested. And at that point, I can tell you right now, this is a hard thing to do sometimes. delete their number right away. At that point, you don't want their contact there to even tempt you because they've already established they don't like you. And if you do that, if you ever contact them again, you're now getting rid of that strength that you showed them when you said, I'm not gonna, talk to you anymore. That same dynamic will apply to the average one as well. That same way I said it is how it would apply to the average one. The same way in terms of waiting to see how much they talk to you, the intervals in between. If you had a good run throughout the day, that's cool. If not, and then you're still going to ask for the phone number. You're still going to ask for a time to meet up, whatever the case is. If they aren't clear about that, you're going to like just shut it down. There is no time to be no one's pen pal because people sometimes want to put you into this friend zone or be a person who wants to go and hang out with you and this and that. And they don't want to do anything and they don't want to whatever. Like, it, whatever it is, well, I'm not hanging out with you, but you get what I'm saying, like in terms of just the pen pal speaking on the phone or just, texting you here and there, but don't actually want to meet up. Meeting up goes into a whole different category. The below average, I will say this. If they're a little more hesitant to maybe give their phone number or whatever the case is, I will say don't be as quick to shut it down. You can have that nice flow of exchange of conversation, and that conversation will probably be a greater exchange than it would have been with the other two, the average or above average. But I will say with the below average, don't be so quick to if they say they're not necessarily comfortable giving the phone number, for you to like quickly jump to um, stop talking to them because for them it might be more a perspective of insecurities or things of that sort. And even though we might say to ourselves, well, do I want to speak to somebody like that or get to know someone like that? Sometimes people like that can be shaped and molded where you can bring them confidence. You can do like whatever. The point is, you want on the dating app, it's just really about meeting somebody because there's nothing unless you get to that phase of actually meeting the person. So, with the below average, don't be so quick to knock them out of the ballpark. Obviously, you're still messaging other people. So you're also not going to make them feel that empowered by where you're reaching out to them more than they reach out to you. If they don't aren't okay with giving you their number, don't contact them that much. Let them chase you. If they don't, then obviously just they're the ones that you can ghost. The below the average, if they aren't hitting you back that much, the way you want, you can ghost them. Why? Because it's not about establishing to say, hey, listen, like this is what it is. You weren't reaching out to me, and you could do that if you want, just to keep consistent with the way you do things. But you don't have to because you're not doing it to establish power to say, hey, I'm not your puppet, I'm on your equal level. If they are more attractive to you, you don't need to do that. You already feel like you're more attractive than them. So the reason here why you can ghost them is because it's more so just the fact that they're not putting effort when it's like clearly if you see that you're like a good catch for them to be talking to and they're not, that just means they're distracted with other people. And it doesn't matter that you ghost them at that point because someone who's below average in your mind, that means they're distracted by other people. It doesn't matter that you ghosted them because now you know for a fact that they're clearly distracted by other people because they were below average, meaning that you found that they found you more attractive than you find them in general. Because most people never find each other equally attractive. It's one finds the person more attractive than the other. You'll know how much you find this person attractive. So that would be the case if they don't respond readily. But if they do respond readily, obviously you set up a time and a date and this and that. You try to make them comfortable because, like I said, sometimes the below average has been. Sometimes they've had bad experiences because people sometimes go for them for the purpose of using them. If that's your agenda, you're trying to use this as just a hookup kind of thing. Um, the only thing I can say is that muddies the water. So I'm trying to give advice on how people can get some up. I'm not saying that it has to turn into a serious relationship, but at least that you're going with the intention of just kind of seeing what it is and seeing what happens of it. It doesn't mean that if it doesn't become something serious and it just becomes like something that's physical because that's just the page you guys on that something happens. But in general, just understand that the people who try to just go for the below average just to hook up sometimes muddies their trust for the next person. You don't really have that with the above average or sometimes even the average because sometimes a little bit with the average, but not with the above average because they never feel like they're being used for anything because they're usually ones calling the shots. So I know this video stretched a bit. So that's kind of like a way just for you to gauge when it comes to responses and how to respond accordingly. I hope that that helped. If there's a subject that you guys want to dive deeper into, just put down in the comments below and any kind of questions you have, and I will try to expand on it as much as possible, or just relate your experiences, and maybe I could kind of add something to what it is that you've experienced, maybe some other angle of insight, whatever it might be. So as always, you guys like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.